You wake up when your body is ready. No conch shell sounding, no schedule, no tribute you need to pay to an overseer. You sit up on your woven mat, stretch, and ask yourself one question. What should I do today? For 99% of the history of the ancient Maya, this wasn't a hypothetical. This was every single morning for the early Maya ancestors for thousands of years. And the answer to that question looked nothing like the life of the later Maya who built the Great Pyramids, or the life you are living right now. Modern people and the later classic Maya spend roughly a third of their waking existence working. But for the overwhelming majority of ancient Maya history, jobs didn't exist. There was no Ajaw, king to serve, no limestone to haul, no career ladder to climb. So what did the ancient Maya actually do all day? Let's start with what we know for certain. By studying the archaeological remains of the earliest Mesoamerican settlements and observing the few isolated groups that still forage in the deep Petan jungle, researchers found something remarkable. The ancient Maya ancestors spent about 2.5 days per week acquiring food. That's roughly 17 hours. The rest of the time, the ancient Maya did whatever they wanted. And here's the important part. This pattern shows up everywhere archaeologists look. From the dense rainforests of the south to the dry scrub of the Yucatan Peninsula. Different environments, same result. About 15 to 20 hours per week spent on survival activities. Now some of you are thinking, but how do we know the ancient Maya lived this way? Fair question. And the answer comes from bones. When archaeologists compare the skeletons of the earliest ancient Maya hunter-gatherers to the later Maya populations who relied entirely on agriculture, the difference is dramatic. The later Maya farmers were shorter. Their teeth were riddled with cavities from a diet heavy in maize and worn down by the grit of the metate, grinding stone. They had arthritis in their spines from the repetitive labor of tending the milpa, cornfields, and they died younger. The earliest ancient Maya skeletons, taller, stronger, healthier teeth, less joint damage. Their bones tell a clear story. The ancient Maya were doing less repetitive physical labor, not more. But the most fascinating evidence comes from something archaeologists found that shouldn't exist if the ancient Maya's survival was a constant struggle. Art deep in the Loltun cave in the Yucatan, explorers found ancient paintings. Handprints, deer, and faces rendered with care. These weren't crude scratches. This was sophisticated art that required skill, planning, and most importantly, time. An ancient Maya artist spent hours, maybe days, deep inside a cave by the light of a pine torch, painting the walls. Not for survival, not for food. For beauty, for meaning, for something to do. In early Maya sites near the Caribbean coast, archaeologists found carefully perforated shells, meant to be strung together as jewelry. An ancient Maya walked for miles just to collect shells, then spent hours carefully drilling holes with stone tools. Just to look good. They also found early flutes carved from the bones of deer and birds. Whoever made these understood pitch, they understood music, and they spent significant time crafting them. Not for hunting, but for music. This is what the ancient Maya did when they weren't securing food. They created, they decorated, they made things beautiful. Let's reconstruct a day. You wake up around dawn. The fire from last night is still smoldering. You eat leftover roasted peccary, wild pig, or fish from the cenote, maybe some ramon nuts or wild papayas collected the day before. Breakfast is social. People talk. They plan loosely for the day. Around mid-morning, a small group of ancient Maya might leave to hunt with spears and atlatls, spear throwers, or gather roots. But here's the key. They didn't go every day. If the hunt was successful 2 days ago, an ancient Maya might not leave camp at all. You might spend the morning chipping an obsidian rock into a sharp blade, weaving a basket, or scraping a jaguar hide to make it soft. This isn't work in the modern sense. There is no supervisor. The ancient Maya did it because competence matters. Because being skilled earned respect. If hunting happened, it wasn't a frantic chase. The ancient Maya were persistence hunters, tracking a deer through the jungle heat for hours until it overheated and collapsed. The hunt might take 3 to 6 hours. Then the animal is carried back and butchered. Everyone eats. And by early afternoon, the productive part of an ancient Maya's day was essentially over. What happens next is what modern people find hardest to understand. Nothing and everything. The ancient Maya rested. They sat in the shade of a ceiba tree and talked. They played with children. They groomed each other, reinforcing bonds. They carved jade or stones. Anthropologists note that foraging peoples spend roughly 6 hours per day in social time. Not working, just being with other people. Because in the ancient Maya world, without cacao beans for money or kings to enforce laws, your survival depended entirely on your relationships. If people didn't like you, they didn't share food. So the ancient Maya invested enormous amounts of time in those bonds. It is how they stayed strong. Then the sun sets, and this is when something remarkable happens. During the day, the ancient Maya's conversations were practical. Where are the tapir tracks? Which fruits are ready for harvest? But at night, around the fire, conversations shifted to stories. Myths about the hero twins, tales of how the gods formed the world, jokes, and adventures. This is where ancient Maya culture was actually born. Gods like Chak and Kukulkan, the underworld of Zabalba, the past, the future. Things the ancient Maya could only think about when their stomachs were full and they were safe. And the ancient Maya didn't go to sleep and stay asleep the way you do now. Before the great cities, they slept in 2 phases. First, sleep for about 4 hours. Then a wakeful period of 1 to 2 hours in complete darkness to stoke the fire and watch the stars. Then, second sleep until dawn. So here is what a full day looked like for the ancient Maya. About 4 to 6 hours securing food or making tools, about 6 hours in social interaction, storytelling, playing, about 8 hours sleeping in 2 separate phases. And the rest? Resting, watching the jungle canopy, doing nothing in particular. Existing without needing to justify their existence through productivity. Then, thousands of years ago, something changed. The ancient Maya began planting seeds. They domesticated maize, beans, and squash. Agriculture, and agriculture is a trap. Once the ancient Maya started farming the milpa, they could feed more people. More people meant they needed more maize. More maize meant more farming. Within a few generations, populations exploded, and there was no going back. The ancient Maya were locked in. Farming required far more labor, cutting the jungle with stone axes, planting, weeding, and praying for rain. The skeletal evidence is unambiguous. The early Maya farmers worked harder, ate worse, and died younger than the ancient Maya hunter-gatherers who came before them. But the population kept growing. And with larger populations came the great stone cities like Tikal and Copan. With cities came specialists, soldiers, priests, and eventually the Ajaw, kings. The idea that an ancient Maya's time belonged to someone else in exchange for the right to live on the land. By the time the pyramids were built, the original lifestyle of the ancient Maya was gone, replaced by obligations and the need to work most of their waking hours just to survive in the system they created. Today, you spend 90,000 hours working. The ancient Maya ancestors spent way less. You sleep in 1 block and call waking up at 2 a.m. insomnia. The ancient Maya slept in 2 phases and used the middle hours for reflection. You spend your life chasing an illusion of wealth and success by standards society invented. The ancient Maya woke up every morning already free, already enough, and at peace with nothing to prove to the jungle. They didn't need to become successful. They were already living the life you are working your entire existence to retire into. You make art if you can find time after your job. The ancient Maya made art because they had time, and that's what they did. We live so differently from how the ancient Maya lived for 99% of their existence that we might as well be a different species. We traded freedom for the security of the maize harvest, leisure for giant stone pyramids, time for productivity, and most of us have no idea what we gave up because we never knew the freedom of the ancient Maya was ever there.